have a CDL driver's license. I can drive, I guess, anything that runs up and down the highway. I can run the loader and the maintainer and the distributor. I want to take a spin around Gale. They call this the Gale Mountain. It's a whole new country when you drop off the Cap Rock.
The town of Gale lies along U.S. Highway 180 between Snyder and Lamesa. From her office in Gale, Nan Sharp supervises the upkeep of all the roads and highways in Borden County.
I guess being in the office too, I understood the paperwork and the budgeting and payroll as far as that goes.
We've always looked up to her anyway. She was a secretary and she knew everything that was going on anyway. So she done a real good job in here, and now I see what she went through in here.
After 6 years as an employee here, Nan was promoted last month to the job of maintenance supervisor. She runs this office and oversees the work of the 10 men on her staff.
Right now I'm currently the only lady supervisor in the state of Texas.
Nan says her ability to be a boss probably wouldn't have been recognized 10 years ago when there was less state emphasis on promoting capable women. Now she says social pressure on the state and an open-minded community are allowing hard-working women to set and achieve higher goals. With this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News 11. They claim it's the best food in town, possibly even in the county. Joyce Herridge runs the place. Husband Frank provides the entertainment. The place is filled with hunters this time of year and with truckers taking Borden County farm products to market.
Right now, it's the working kind of people. During the summer, we have quite a bit of tourist people. This highway, you know, they're coming in, especially from Hobbs.
Herridge is one of the women who control the majority of the business that's conducted in this county.
My wife runs my house, so I don't know why it should be any different anywhere else.
Here in Gale, the only town in Borden County, women are owners and chief executives at the Highway Department, the post office, the courthouse, and the 2 retail stores. Bertie Copeland has owned the thriving country store for 6 years.
I get up at night, I come down here for the locals. You know, I'm not scared to live out here. In Lubbock or bigger towns, I might be.
Over at the courthouse, County and District Clerk Dorothy Brown can tell you the life history of Borden County natives.
From the time you're born through marriage, and of course if you're district clerk, then you keep even through divorces, and we also have probate that probates wills.
Okay, you about to get all these done? Get them in the mail today?
I hope so.
Okay.
The latest woman to be promoted to power in Gale is in charge of administering the federal farm program. Nancy Condit credits a progressive community for allowing women to be the best they can be.
Probably not as many barriers as there were, 10, 15 years ago, but yeah, there's still some barriers there. I think I'm going to really like it here. It's a good county to be in and a lot of good people.
With this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News 11.
All right, we got Stupid Stars at 6:20. We don't have Dick Slick. It's the cleaning lady.
It's 9:30 on a weekday morning. The morning team at Lubbock's KCBD Radio has finished today's on-air duties, and John, Don, and Jane are already planning their spontaneous remarks for tomorrow's show.
Despite the fact that he's 85 years old, he still has all his sex drives.
Is that too nasty? I don't think it's too nasty.
It says Doppler radar can do more than predict the weather.
These hard-working wisecrackers are on the job before dawn, hoping to catch your ear as you start your day.
Used to, when I was single, I'd drive my roommates crazy because I was so happy I'd just sing in the mornings. Yeah, I like it up.
She's the whole show.
We have times, we have moments that we get so mad at each other, but it's like, I feel almost like I'm married to these guys because I talk to them as much as I talk to my husband. Usually. A day with Jane is a day on the road. She puts 35,000 miles a year on this car.
First stop after the radio station is Posey Elementary School. Prince Jones is a volunteer tutor for third grader Antoine Richards in the school's Help One Student to Succeed program. Back on the road she knows so well, Prince Jones recalls her first memories of Lubbock.
Let's see, I'd been here for 2 weeks and the tornado hit. And what happened when the tornado came through here, it wiped out so much of it, and we got a lot of federal money coming into this area. It really helped the area to build up. Good evening, I'm Jane Prince, and this
Women were just beginning to make their marks in television news when Jane Prince Jones became Lubbock's first woman television news anchor in 1976, right here on Channel 11.
Get right close to him and salute.
This busy broadcaster is also a talented thespian with a degree in theater. Prince Jones says that's her first love. Rehearsals keep her up till midnight. 5 hours sleep, though, and she's ready with a wake-up call on the radio. With the South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News 11.
When I started collecting cars, this is not the first car I bought, and I've owned this car for 21 or 22 years, and we're great friends. Never fails to start, runs good, rides good.
Jack Oswald likes cars from the 50s. His collection reflects his interest in all the old makes and models, each with its own unique style and personality.
It's very English. You feel very English in it. It makes you want to race around a little bit, you know, and maybe go a little faster than you should. It's fun to rev up the engine.
Oswald was born and raised in Plainview, the great-grandson of a Plainview pioneer businessman. As part of the effort to revive the city's downtown area, Oswald travels the world to find items for his Old World antique store. Much of the inventory is affordable for the average income, but you'd have to be above average in that area to take home this French dining set. It's priced at $45,000. Oswald says he's doing his part to bring money to Plainview's economy.
We bring in different people from different places, and it's fresh money.
How does he pick an antique that will sell? Oswald says he just feels it. His instinct tells him how to match the charm of the old world with the charm of his own hometown. With this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. It's a young person's job. Backaches can force a horseshoer to retire before 50. At 31, Travis Reinhardt is a veteran. He's been shoeing horses on the South Plains since he was just a little shaver.
I grew up around horses and stuff, and I can tell if one of them's crippled somewhere or what we need to do to his old feet.
Travis can tell when a foot or shoe problem is interfering with the animal's ability to do its work.
Well, you just look at his feet and see if it's healthy, if it's level, if the horse is traveling on it good.
Schools all over the country teach what Travis knows. We hear it straight from the horse's hoof. My hand right here, hold the hoof on there. This is the first step in horseshoeing. Get the mud off. The average horse needs new shoes every 6 to 8 weeks, and not all are as calm as Dunning here.
You really have to have a good holder to help you. Sometimes you may have to, if you got to have one shot and he won't let you, you just may have to give him a little sedative so he'll calm down so you can shoe him, you know.
The tough leather apron he wears helps protect Travis from flying nails and feisty feet.
These packs, I don't have to put them on there because I had to wear holes in the original apron. Do a lot of horses, you go through a lot of equipment. It's what I do for a living, and that's what I do.
With this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Second part. Okay, here we go.
O.T. Ryan retired as band director at Plainview High School last spring, but retirement made him sick.
Fun is working with the kids. They're the greatest thing. You get addicted to them after 43 years. You can't go cold turkey.
After suffering all sorts of stress-related ailments, Ryan says he asked the new band director to let him return as an assistant.
2-3 teams apiece.
Band director Barry Hurt had retiree J.W. King and Ryan to help him take the Plainview High School band to state competition this year.
O.T., he's worked with the trumpets from the word go. He's hung in there with us through the bad notes and the good notes.
Ryan's return was as welcome to senior bandsman Scott McCall as it was to Ryan.
And I'd choke up when I saw the crowd, like on high seas and stuff. He just told me to stay calm, and he said, close my eyes, if anything, don't look, but that helped me out.
They're all real fine kids. Barry, the morale of the band is real high. They're just a wonderful bunch of kids. They have their problems, just like everybody else, but they're coming along. Their morale's high. They know how to conduct themselves.
The band was judged among the 8 best high school bands in the state in its division.
It's just been kind of a real fine situation. I mean, it has been fun.
With this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. Listen, on a quiet country night, you can hear the music from half a mile away. This little house on the South Plains becomes a wonderland of lights at Christmas time. Gary and Charles C. Smith work virtually year-round to maintain the landscape for 7,000 red Christmas bulbs.
Hope it lights up. There it is. This one right here is out, though. I'm going to have to redo something different on that.
This time of year, you'll see them out every night polishing and straightening their Santa's lane. They do it for love of Christmas and love of friends and neighbors in Spade and Lamb County.
If we're not here at 6 o'clock, there are people waiting on us to turn the lights on. And then we get Christmas cards from people, some people we don't even know, that have been around and thank us for doing this.
Cars drive through Santa's lane by the dozens during December. Friends and family have donated many of the specialty items and pieces of art. A recent addition to Santa Lane is this playground equipment. When the Spade School got new equipment, they donated this merry-go-round and the slide to the Smiths. The lights almost didn't go up this Christmas. It's been a dark year for the Smiths. Their oldest daughter died earlier this year.
It was hard. We each day we had to, push ourselves. Yeah, this is Kim's dog. I'm glad we went ahead and put him up, and Kim would have loved him.
Caring neighbors help sustain the Smiths' Christmas spirit. A windstorm blew apart much of Santa's Lane in early December, but a group effort had it shining brightly again within just a few days. With this South Plains Profile in Lamb County, north of Spade, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
I was the last of my family. I came back to do what I'm doing, is to preserve the history of the Hank Smith family and the heritage that we have in our country out here.
Georgia May Smith Erickson graduated from Texas Tech in 1936 and promptly left the South Plains. She stayed away for 40 years, but she couldn't live a lifetime away from her heritage.
Your heritage is all you have, really. It's what you are.
Like her grandmother before her, she designed her modern Blanco Canyon home for visitors and community events. The house where Georgia May Erickson lives with her family of pets now overlooks the house where her family pioneered this area years ago. The Smith family's rock house was a gathering place during frontier times. It's recreated at the museum in Crosbyton.
And that particular rifle was the rifle that buffalo hunters used.
Georgia May has donated the many items inside that document the lives of her grandparents, Hank and Elizabeth Smith.
It does teach us that what kind of people we are and what we are really preserving for our children that it's just as we pick up a history book and read. We're part of that.
With this South Plains profile in Crosbyton, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Fort Brigham was known as
A lot of debris here from the roof.
It's hard to believe that a lot of work has already been done here.
We're anxious to get started downstairs, painting these walls, making it pretty, you know.
Rain-damaged seats have been torn out. Next step, fix the roof so inside repairs can be made. Retired Colonel Walter D. Burnett looks past the broken, dirty walls and floors. He and businessman Jim Kirkendall have a vision of the Rialto as it was and as it will be.
This old place is part of our heritage. We were just kids when they put this place in, and it was a great place to come to every Saturday afternoon and see a matinee. And we're going to fix this place up, and we'll have terrific shows here someday. Just takes a while.
The two men live the history of this theater, going back to the first movies with sound in Terry County, the first color movies, and famous live performances from the Sons of the Pioneers and Gene Autry.
It was about 1937, and he brought his horse right out on that stage.
The men have big plans for that stage.
They've opened a space for 2 doors, double door, to go into the dressing room. And we can bring even a baby grand piano in through there and put on the stage.
From his office across the street, Kirkendall watched Burnett paint the mural that marked a new beginning for the Rialto. The colonel honed his artistic talents as he traveled the world in the military. Now his paintings and sculptures grace not only the old theater, but his home, where he was raised and now lives in again on Main Street. With the South Plains Profile in Brownfield, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. It might look like pure frolic, but Lubbock's All-American dance team takes its fun very seriously. They worked all day, every day, for weeks getting ready for the national competition last summer. Then more work to raise the $1,500 each of them had to have to make the trip to Hawaii. The older members of the team will compete individually for a few coveted scholarships.
And so I'm really hoping that I'm one of those lucky people there, too. That way I can go to college, as soon as possible.
At 17, Lubbock High School graduate Chad Harmon is the oldest member of the team and the only male. He's planning a career in dance. He's been doing it seriously for about 6 years.
I used to watch MTV and get up and I'd dance to Janet Jackson and Paula Abdul, and catch on some of their moves. And I guess that's really how I got started. So my family taught me into my first dance class, and it was full of girls, and I said, whoa, this is for me. So.
Big smiles are among the things that got these young people where they are today. And how does a 12-year-old become one of the 200 Hula Bowl elite?
Well, I think that I always stand out because I'm one of the littlest people. And so everybody always sees me and calls me little one or something. And so that's what I think makes me stand out.
And 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. 1.
Teresa Bird instructs this Lubbock troupe. Her pupils were good enough to catch the eye of a nationally known choreographer for a spot in the Hula Bowl parade, pre-show, and game halftime. With the South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. Pew makes his own kind of music. His motivation is his love for his mistress and his love of bologna.
Sing, Peppy, sing.
Peppy Pepe's guitar playing still needs some polishing, but he continues to practice hard. This perky pooch has a bag full of tricks.
Let's see you sit tall. Now speak. Now roll over. Down. Down. Now crawl. 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 Now stand and turn. Stand. Stand and turn. Now walk. Come on, walk. Walk.
Wanda Holt and Pepe have given command performances for some children's groups and older folks.
How much is 1 and 1? 5 and 2.
And sometimes he's more interested in socializing than showing off.
Oh, you're so cute. You're such a cute dog.
Dozens of photos capture the moments in Pepe's life.
Here he is with his bear.
Birthdays mean birthday cakes in his favorite flavor. Bologna, of course. Although he practices often, tricks are just a small part of Pepe's job. He's a constant watchdog and companion.
We're real close. He's just a pretty special doggy.
With the South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
That's pretty good.
Car manufacturers are catering to customers more than ever in their ads, their designs, and their attitudes. News Channel 11's Diane Dotson has more from Slayton in tonight's South Plains Profile.
This car, some of the things that would appeal to women is a lot of attention has been made to the door handles in door pulls for long nails to make sure that they don't get caught in awkward places, and they do a lot of testing, amazingly so, to make sure that your hand fits there and you're not going to be sticking it into a crevice or something that's going to clip your nail.
And for men, it's a tachometer and more gauges than ever before.
Why don't you call on that one and see if they'll let us have it.
The general manager of Smith Ford Mercury is a single mom who's made a name for herself in a male-dominated industry. Following in her father's footsteps, Annette Smith has seen the auto business change.
Morning, Spoon.
Morning.
She says the old dickering over the price tag has changed in the past 20 years since women began doing their own financial wheeling and dealing.
I don't think women like to do that kind of pounding negotiating. And if you've done all those, kind of done your homework, which women are a little better at doing than men, that they can get a good deal.
Smith has done her commercial homework so well that she's been recognized by car dealers in Texas and across the nation. She was featured recently on the cover of a national auto industry trade magazine.
I enjoy what I do. I guess I love the business. I love the cars, and I love the people.
In Slayton, with this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
And here.
February 7th, 1964, the Beatles rocked their way into the hearts of American teenagers. Here on the South Plains, 11-year-old Larry Waggoner knew the Beatles would be part of his own identity. Waggoner bought into Beatlemania literally, purchasing the first album in his huge collection with allowance saved up after he saw the Ed Sullivan Show.
Here we are, we're introducing the Beatles, okay? This is England's #1 vocal group.
Years later, his favorite collectible is the infamous Butcher cover, recalled by the record company after an outcry and covered with a simpler picture of the Fab Four. Waggoner paid $125 for this album.
You know, we negotiated for weeks and weeks and weeks. He had it, he knew what it was worth, I wanted it, I knew what it was worth, so there was a lot of negotiation going on there.
Waggoner never went outside the South Plains for an addition to his collection. The albums and memorabilia came from stores, friends, and garage sales for as little as a nickel or a quarter at times.
And take them home, look into the collector's books and find out that they're $75 and $100 items.
Waggoner's collection includes the first bootlegged albums, the first porno album featuring burr cuts on the quartet, a Bulgarian album, and music from Johnny and the Moondogs before they became the Beatles.
A lot of folks think, no, dealers were around for a long time. They only toured for 3 years, 63 to 66. They had 3 tour years. They were hot probably in 62 is when they really first came into international recognition. Broke up in 70. They were only around for 8 years.
And if there's anything else you want to know about John, Paul, George, and Ringo, just ask Lubbock's Larry Wagoner. With the South Plains Profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. On July 18, 1993, Justin May's life fell apart. But now, with the help of family, friends, and physical therapist, he's putting the pieces back together. The 13-year-old 8th grader was on a Boy Scout trip in the mountains of New Mexico when he suffered a stroke. He doesn't remember much about it.
Just not being able to move my arm, dragging my right foot.
And that meant no more football or basketball for this young athlete, the son of Plainview High School's football coach. But Justin says no matter, he likes computers better anyway.
At different times he said he thinks that's what he wants to do when he grows up, something with a computer.
Right now his laptop lets him do his schoolwork without help.
I can't write with the right hand, so, well, I can write with the left hand, but it's messy.
After 75 days in the hospital and months in therapy, Justin is improving. And now he's back at Plainview's Estacado Junior High nearly full-time.
The doctors and therapists said they wanted him to go straight back to school. They thought the best thing for him was to be with his friends. Girls all flirt with him, the boys all tease him, just like they always did, and I think that's been really good for him.
And no disability is going to interfere with Justin's plans for the summer. He's already applied for a job at the Boy Scout camp in Post.
He's just come so far, you know, and just done so much. I mean, there for a while we didn't even know if he was going to live. And now he does everything for himself. He thinks he can snow ski. You know, we haven't been able to try yet, but there's nothing that he doesn't think he can do.
With this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
District Attorney on Tuesday, March 8th.
If you can train a dog, you can train a child. So says the training director for the South Plains Obedience Training Club. Joanne Neal and other members of the club are getting ready for a weekend of dog obedience competition at the Lubbock Fairgrounds. News Channel 11's Diane Dotson has more in tonight's South Plains Profile.
Betty Hill. Joanne Neal says it works for child or dog. One command given in a cheerful tone of voice.
Take it. If you reinforce a cheerful command, then the child or the dog obeys the cheerful command. If you don't reinforce the command until you get loud and nasty, then that's the command that they're going to obey. So that's a good girl.
And remember, children and dogs work for immediate rewards, for play or for praise. It's the kind of dog training and mothering Neal has used successfully for 20 years. Her dogs compete in American Kennel Club obedience trials and the conformation or beauty pageant part of dog shows.
I like to have a dog that has both beauty and brains.
It takes years to get to the top of obedience competition training. At 7 years old, featherweight contender UD is a show veteran. And up-and-comer little Lottie has already impressed the judges.
She learns to pose for the judge just like this. When I tell her to, no, stay. Okay, good girl.
Neal takes her responsibility as a dog owner very seriously and urges you and I to do the same.
I clean up after them and just make sure they're not a nuisance to anyone else. And I think that's, you know, what people need to remember, that there's a lot of responsibility that goes with having a dog, and training is just part of that responsibility.
With the South Plains Profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
If you'd like more information on dog training for household manners or for competition, contact the South Plains Obedience Training Club. You can see the dogs from several states in competition at the South Plains Fairgrounds this Saturday and Sunday.
Or child training too, maybe? Okay. That's all for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
You've been watching News Channel 11 at 10, the most watched 10 o'clock news on the South Plains.
We collect the eggs in the evening, and then we come in and we weigh them and mark which hens they come from, and also mark the egg number.
Rollo Gerst puts the properly labeled eggs in the incubator for a few days, then transfers them to the hatchery.
Then it takes usually 2 to 4 days to hatch. When he gets strong enough, then he'll kick through the eggshell itself and come on out and hatch.
When they're just 1 day old, the baby emus get the microchip identity they'll carry in their neck muscles all their lives.
And it's just like a license plate on a car or the serial number on a car. From now on, we'll track that bird according to that 9-digit number.
5 years ago, the Gerst family began breeding emus as a mom-and-pop operation. Today, it's a state-of-the-art corporation on 20 fenced acres south of Lubbock.
And they're a pretty docile bird. I have 2 children that are under the age of 6, and they help collect eggs. So.
But Gerst says you can't be too careful around emus. They can outrun any predator and outfight most.
I approach the bird from the back because these birds kick forward. If you get around to the business end, they can rip you up. That front toe is like a razor.
The rat-hide industry is a new growing one, but Gerst says the birds themselves are not new to the South Plains.
There has been some bones found in Post, Texas that were from ostrich, so this bird was indigenous to this part of Texas at one time.
With this South Plains profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Oh, he's hanging right here. Dr. Shannon put that thing back together because I didn't want to lose it.
When it happened, James' son Wright was already retired, running a cotton gin only as a favor to a friend. One day when some unruly employees angered him, he forgot the rules of safety. The machinery severed his right hand and part of his left, but he recovered, and like a lot of retirees, grew restless. So he set up shop combining 2 lifelong loves, horses and trading.
Well, it ought to be a law you had to trade at least 3 times a week, in my opinion.
Wright says he'll take anything and put a price on it, but he likes the old stuff best.
Now that's out of the ordinary right there, and these old stirrups are. They're old. We don't make that stuff around here no more like they used to. And that's what's hurting us now. See, everything, I'll say 50% of this stuff in here comes from Korea. American stuff is usually a lot better than the other. Mm-hmm. And it's usually higher, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you call the first Barker Lounger.
The Wright household is filled with antiques son and his wife have found and restored over the years. They say they have an instinct for seeing the beauty beneath the surface of an old piece.
Well, you even named.
Wright says a good horse catches his eye just as quickly.
We used to herd cows all over this country here. It's all grass and white-faced cows and sheep. And I've been on a horse, well, you might say ever since I was 3 years old.
And 7 decades later, Wright still trains and pampers his horses. Near Levelland, with this South Plains profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Now, he comes from down around.
The detail, the color, the beauty of it all. What inspiration leads an artist to accept a job of this magnitude?
Be hungry and then you paint.
John Russell Thomason is mostly a commercial artist who says this kind of work is more technical than artistic.
I'm really not that creative. I'm more of a technician, and that's what I really like.
But it doesn't take an expert to spot the talent in Thomason's work.
Usually the comments are just, I like the way it looks.
His art is displayed on and in buildings from the South Plains to the White House. Workers at Plains National Bank enjoy this print of a Thomason picture presented to former President Bush while he was in office. But Thomason says none of it has brought him fame.
A lot of times pictures are remembered, but the artist is not. So, and that's okay, just as long as I keep working.
And the artist expects to stay busy as more building owners discover that remodeling with paint can be cheaper than construction. With the South Plains Profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. Trish and Tally are brushing up for their next competition, and they both take their hobby seriously.
These are her overreach boots. Means if she'll overreach, come in from behind too close on a barrel and kick her, these protect them. This will protect this should she come back up and kick it.
How much time do you spend every day, say, practicing?
I try to practice every evening, but I don't run barrels every evening. Usually just pleasure ride, just enough to keep her in shape.
Even though they're amateurs, Trish and Tally do some winning, and Trish says it's because they both want the win and work for it.
Coming up on the third barrel, she sees the third barrel. Her ears will come up when she gets about ready to make her pocket. Right there. There it goes, yeah.
Trish calms her jitters by stitching before a competition, and dozens of quilts are the proof of her resolve to relax and let Tally do what the horse does best.
I'll just let her work and get myself in tune to her. She'll do good.
With the South Plains Profile, in Tahoka, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Right here, I would feel homesick sometimes. So I would shoot again.
Sam Benitez thinks he'll go back to his homeland of El Salvador someday. But right now, he's working toward becoming a citizen of this country.
There it is.
Yay! And trying to decide whether to become a police officer or a professional basketball player when he grows up.
Really basketball. Because you would win a lot of money and you would have a better life like that.
Sam's mother has made her home in this country in order to make a better life for her boys. El Salvador was a dangerous place during the war, and Nadia Benitez was afraid.
They were recruiting young boys for the war. There were kids between 9 and younger than 9 years old fighting with shotguns, with machine guns, and fighting in the war.
Nadia married her longtime friend and Meadow native Wade Turnbow after the deaths of her husband and his wife. They say people are naturally curious about the relationship because the marriage allows Nadia and Sam to become U.S. citizens.
It's a strange kind of a curiosity because, as we've said, we may be the odd couple for obvious reasons, but we don't feel the need to explain it.
It's because of love and it's not because of convenience.
Do you give high fives?
Younger son Joel, who insists on being called Joel, by the way, is already a U.S. citizen, born here before his father died and before the family went back to El Salvador. Sam's hoping that when he returns to El Salvador, he'll be as famous as his idol, Shaquille O'Neal.
The luckiest part is way right here. I would make it or not make it.
And he may just make it. From Meadow, with the South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. Knights in armor, honor, and chivalry. It's a family affair for the members of the Society for Creative Anachronism, and they welcome visiting players in a courtly manner.
Your Excellency, we have here my Lady Diane. Nice to meet you.
And what do I call you, sir?
I am His Excellency Baron Haycock. This is my Baroness, Baroness Hannah.
Do we shake hands?
We
Okay.
shake hands. That's good. It's a living history lesson, a martial art, a game.
My lords and ladies.
Beginners are allowed to take part in the demonstrations. Of course, first you have to don the gear, which is a heavy helmet, and the bamboo sword that goes with it all.
And it helps to have some instruction before you face an opponent.
What you want is a snap, and what you're doing is pulling back on this one and pivoting off the front. It goes.
Okay.
Just that
I
little
can
bit
do
of
that.
movement.
Okay, now this, is that good? Now, does this have any application in 1994?
1994?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the application today?
The application today is that no one on the street messes with us. The one portion is quite violent, but no more so than karate, taekwondo, or any of the other martial arts.
In real life, the Baron is mailman Bob Decker. And in real life, the basics of SCA still apply.
In the ways of respecting one another for who they are and what they are capable of accomplishing or what they have accomplished. To respect one's own property, to not take things for granted.
And he wants us to know the medieval life is only a hobby, not an obsession.
You're not a bunch of crazies, is that what you're trying to say?
I'm trying to, yes, very much so.
Anyone's welcome to join the knights in metal armor, as long as they follow the SCA's most important rule, the golden one.
Do to others as you would have them do to you.
With this South Plains profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. What do you say to your oral surgeon when your mouth is stuffed with cotton, equipment, and 2 pairs of hands? Not much? Dr. Gladys Whitten says some patients talk a lot during surgery, and she understands what they say.
I've been listening to people with fingers and hands and props and gauze in their mouth for 19 years. It just really doesn't matter if they have something in there or not. I can understand.
In 1981, Dr. Whitten became the first black woman in the United States to become an oral surgeon, and she was the first woman oral surgeon in Texas. But she says the macho image of oral surgery didn't hinder her new practice.
If I saw any raised eyebrows at all, it was a woman. You know, it was that type of reaction that I would get from patients as well as referring sources initially.
When you're in this chair, no need to fear the pain. Dr. Whitten and other oral surgeons have a lot of ways to help take away the pain.
Okay. A little bit of noise here. I can hear this. The majority of cases that I do here in the office are sedated patients. They're given intravenous medications to allow them to relax.
You have to like what you do if you're going to do it really well, and Dr. Whitten likes oral surgery.
I truly enjoy people. I enjoy the contact that I have with my patients, conversing with them.
The doctor credits family and good school counselors for helping her set and achieve her career goals. And her advice to young people, follow your dreams.
I think people are pretty accepting of individuals that are motivated to want to achieve a goal.
With this South Plains profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. The day begins well before dawn at the bunkhouse bed and breakfast. Mary Ellen Kyle left a fast-paced executive lifestyle in the big city to cater to her guests here. Served up every morning, hearty country fare, spiced with anticipation of the day ahead.
I got a caller. You want to show you? Okay, but once they start coming to a call, you can't hardly mess up.
Mary Ellen's husband, Edwin Kyle, grew up on this land. He's host and guide on his visitors' quest for wild game.
We got the mountain lion, the bobcat, the coyote, the coon.
and the Russian boars are getting more popular all the time out here. More people are hunting them all the time.
Howard from Nevada chooses a turkey blind for his morning's relaxation.
Okay? I'm set. Okay. Have a nice day. Okay, same to you.
The rest of us head for Russian hog territory. Kyle says there are millions of the huge, powerful animals on the South Plains.
They can eat anything. They'll eat cactus, they'll eat flowers, they'll eat grass, they'll eat roots. Where a cow or something will starve to death, the hog will, he'll thrive.
It's a cold, windy day, and hunting is unsuccessful at our first stop.
So, where are we headed to now?
We're headed to another canyon. You think them hogs are running out ahead of you?
I've seen the tracks all the way from where we parked all the way up.
When the wind is blowing strong, it blows the scent away from the dogs.
Yeah, blow away from the track.
We think maybe Howard at the turkey blind has had more luck, but not today.
Howard, neither one of us had any luck today.
Nobody. We didn't see no hog neither.
Meanwhile, the group of hunters and dogs on foot continue their search for the elusive boar.
Are you boys having fun yet?
Yes, I am.
With this South Plains profile near Claremont, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
They think Howard wants to do the wheat field tonight.
Okay.
Good.
The bunkhouse bed and breakfast is a popular place with hunters who want something a little different. Edwin Kyle is host and guide on this land where he grew up near Claremont. Last week we took you on an unsuccessful daylight search for the huge Russian hogs. But tonight, as you'll see now, after dark, the hunters chased and caught their prey.
Come on, Sweet Pea. We take care of our animals out there. We don't over-abuse them. We just harvest them at a normal pace. We mostly take our boars. I take care of the hogs just like I do my deer, my quail.
Edwin Kyle says boars aren't protected by the state now, but he expects they soon will be because of their popularity with human predators. With this South Plains profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. Germany's retirement was tailor-made for her. She's been sewing for more than 60 years for her family and for others.
I just love to sew. That's just part of me.
60 years ago, she had to borrow sewing machines, but in 1939, she got a chance to buy one for $1. Back in those days, a yard of material made a dress for her toddler for $0.10. A relative picked up the supplies in town.
But I'd give him a quarter, and he'd get enough material for me to make her 2 dresses in the spool thread. Oh, I thought I was doing high cotton because I had a sewing machine.
Cotton clothes and a bit of stuffing give Jaquita joy these days because the dolls delight Edna and other friends.
And it will go over her shoulder like this.
This veteran seamstress could whip up a full-size suit, but tiny wardrobes suit her now.
Sewing clothes is work. There's no getting around that. This is fun.
A stroke put this 74-year-old in the Prairie House Living Center, but it didn't give her idle time. What it gave her was opportunity.
Volunteer work. I have always wanted to do this, but I always had to work and help make a living. And until I had my stroke and had to come to the home, that I had a chance to do this.
You know, that's real interesting because I know you pay to live here.
Whatever that I can do that needs to be done and our aides don't have time to do it, then I filled in and helped her.
Well, they ought to pay you for doing that, shouldn't they?
Oh, there's some smiles and the thank yous and things like that. That's my pay.
With the South Plains Profile in Plainview, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. When Susan Grisati makes the big time, she plans to hire someone to tote her musical notes. But until she becomes rich and world famous, this talented classical guitarist will carry her own equipment. She wears heavy gloves to protect the fingers that have made her music since childhood.
I started when I was 13, and it was either a guitar or a horse, and my parents said absolutely not a horse because they didn't want to build a barn, and so I picked up the guitar, and I knew from the first lesson that I would do that professionally. I had no idea how long it would take or how much work it would take, but I knew that I was destined to do that the rest of my life.
Susan will travel to Berlin next year to perform, and she's on the prestigious U.S. Embassy touring roster of performers. The national honors and accolades decorate the studio walls where she teaches local students.
3 or 4-year-olds all the way up to 80-year-olds, and I teach all styles in studio, which includes classical, country, jazz, folk, rock. I'm a closet rocker. My students will attest.
Then we change to C, A minor.
There you go. Good. Country classic Amarillo by Morning is an easy-to-learn favorite. Susan gives me a quick lesson.
E minor, back to E minor. I got the song on D, back to C. Almost done. Is it? I'll be there. There you go, there. George Strait has nothing to worry about.
With this South Plains Profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Okay. Drum from C. This may be, I may.
One ton of West Texas corn makes 80,000 tortillas a day.
You don't have to worry about working through lunch. You've got lunch right here.
We got plenty of lunch right here. This is really good stuff here. We do this, we gotta make a lot of tortillas just to keep up with us.
How many of these do you eat a day?
It's kind of hard to tell. We start our day here about 4:30 in the morning, and usually eat till after lunch, so it's a few.
Sergio Leal is a second-generation tortilla maker. Back before Mexican food became so popular, the Leals had a little cooker that delivered just one tortilla at a time.
Your parents had to teach people to like tortillas.
Right, when they started back in 1957, it was people didn't know a whole lot about Mexican food in this area, and it was a hard go there for a while. But they kind of endured all that, and the Mexican food restaurant business and Mexican food products have really grown.
Leal's tortillas today are sold in 4 states and served up in the 7 restaurants owned or franchised by Sergio's brothers and sisters. And Brother Victor says the next generation of Leals will also be raised in the business.
Mostly where you start out at the restaurants cleaning tables, and we did that when we could barely see above them, when you'd have to really crawl up on the booth and clean tables.
And in the factory, the next Leal kids will take their place at the bagging table just as soon as they can handle the job. With this South Plains Profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Go right back, and it's flat, so then you put it on that bit of skin and press the button here, and it makes 12 little cuts, kind of a gruesome instrument.
Dr. Richard Wright still has some of the instruments his grandfather used to treat patients a century ago. Tools for bleeding a suffering patient, for drilling into a skull, and for pulling a painful tooth.
And then with a delicate twist, and it just tears out the tooth.
Modern medicine in Lynn County is state-of-the-art for this British doctor. Dr. Wright got to know some Americans whom he treated in his practice in London years ago. That fascination with Americans drew him to West Texas.
Hello. Hello, Doc. How you doing?
Pretty good, and you?
Doing.
Even though he had to get used to cold tea and other American oddities, Dr. Wright says he fell in love with the people, the weather, and the lifestyle in Tahoka. And West Texans eventually got used to his English accent and habits.
To the local people here, I was an astonishing creature. I didn't talk like them. I didn't have the same sense of humor. They've been very understanding. Really.
During his 21 years on a round-the-clock schedule, Dr. Wright has delivered hundreds of babies and treated all kinds of emergencies. And with the purchase of 2 farms, he has literally put down roots in his adopted homeland.
And the people were all very genuine, not trying to cover anything up.
Dr. Wright says he's tried to develop a Texas accent, but never quite got the hang of it. No matter to the people of Tahoka, they've honored him as their first ever outstanding citizen. With his South Plains profile, in Tahoka, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. Trees attract birds, but no trees are native to this high, dry ground near Muleshoe. Refuge manager Don Clapp and his staff plant seedlings and encourage them with underground drip watering systems.
And it's kind of a continuing battle to get any trees to go in this area. We have quite a few. They're growing different types of soil along the bottomlands here.
A wildlife refuge is not like a zoo. You have to get up early or stay up late to see most of the wildlife on this refuge. But the scenery alone is West Texas beautiful.
Well, I always have a lot of paperwork on my desk. And if it gets too tiresome, then I get my pickup and I come out and think of something else I can do. And a lot of our activity revolves around just road maintenance, maintenance of the facilities in the area. We do count the birds.
You gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Oh, no, no. It's sort of an educated guess.
Bobcats, coyotes, rattlesnakes, pack rats, and prairie dogs hide in the rocks and crevices. The visitor center is a museum of the mammals and fowl that live in the Muleshoe Refuge.
The Youth Conservation Corps built this bridge 2 years ago.
Teenagers from the Muleshoe area are selected every so often to participate in a work program on the refuge. When you visit here, don't expect to fish, hunt, or swim, but bring your binoculars and your camera, then relax and enjoy. With this South Plains profile at the Muleshoe National Wildlife Refuge, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
When I lived in the Northwest, it reminded me.
What can we tell our son? He's 22, you know, he loves this music.
I want you to give this to him.
Oh, I certainly will. He's the sax man.
Tourists from New York visiting Lubbock's Buddy Holly statue got a bonus. They got to meet rock star Virgil Johnson of the Velvets. Billboard, the music authority, lists the Velvets among the greats of the past.
With a sound combining the Drifters, oh my God, you're in good company.
And critics praise the group.
These guys were good.
Johnson wrote and sang the lead for the Velvets' biggest hit, Tonight Could Be the Night.
Night could be the night. to hear her say, darling, I do.
Johnson says he sometimes wonders what might have been if the group had stayed together, but back in those days he had a good job and a family to support, and he didn't want to gamble on show business.
I have always been taught that a bird in the hand is worth more than 50 in a bush, and I cannot take off and leave and go to New York City or Chicago or LA on what someone think might happen to me.
Oh, my darling, hold me tight.
The Velvets' distinctive sound gave them an edge over other black groups of the doo-wop era. Decades later, this retired school principal still gets phone calls from fans, autograph requests, and offers from promoters who want to keep the Velvets' music alive. With the South Plains Profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Hold me tight, for tonight is the night.
They call them war games. Bang, bang, you're dead. Soldiers in this training exercise know that 1/4 of their group would die if this were a real battle. They wear electronic equipment that tells them who the victims would be.
Range control, this is Mount Hargrove Mount site. The war is in progress. 16 of the enemy has been destroyed. 2 more squads are on the run.
Staff Sergeant Olin Reese keeps the critical lines of communication open as soldiers work their way through a simulated city. It's VIP day at Fort Hood, and officers explain to South Plains leaders and reporters what's going on here.
And the attempt is to root this platoon and this building out.
In his other life, you'd find Sergeant Reese working in the paint department of Builders Square in Lubbock. But here at Fort Hood, he's a specialist in other kinds of chemicals, chemical weapons.
We don't go into dropping the bomb. We just try to train our people how to defend themselves against the effects of them.
How do you simulate that out here?
With smoke, we use white smoke grenades. Anytime you see white smoke, you assume that is a chemical attack.
This ex-Marine joined the National Guard because he missed the military life. It's a serious part-time job that's too much for most of us. At Fort Hood, with this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. We fly into a battle zone. No creature comforts here. South Plains National Guardsmen are hosting civic leaders and reporters for a day at the Guards version of summer camp. Specialist Terry Sanders shows us the ropes. Soldiers are fighting their way through a battle simulation. Sanders trains other soldiers to scale a building in this mock city. Don't try this at home.
Don't try it unless you got somebody around you that knows how to do it. That's for sure. You really get hurt if you don't know what you're doing.
Sanders says communication is crucial here.
If you can't talk to whoever's in front of you or behind you, then it's not any good.
Back home, Sanders' assistant manages a Lubbock Burger King, but it's a different kind of fast food served up here on the battlefield.
This is what they call a brown bag, and there's no Ziploc bags out here. Take some heavy utensils to open this lunch bag. Spaghetti and meatballs out of a green bag. You know, I've had worse at my house.
At 3,000 calories per bag, it's not diet food, but then calories aren't a problem here. These soldiers tend to shed pounds during this 2 weeks of training. Sergeant Juan Rodriguez is a switcher technician with General Telephone in Brownfield.
It takes about 2 or 3 days to really adjust to it. Out here we have a lot more strenuous training. Hours are completely different. Conditions are different. And you don't have any comforts of life out here.
The visitors get the VIP treatment and then go home at the end of the day, while South Plains soldiers battle the heat and thoughts of time away from their families. From Fort Hood, with this South Plains profile, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. This is no tourist trap, no vacation resort. The Lake Allen Henry Wildlife Habitat is strictly for the birds, the rabbits, the deer, and the dozens of other native South Plains creatures that make their homes here.
Primary goal was, of course, to enhance the area for wildlife. The secondary goal is to provide recreation if it's not detrimental to the resource itself.
Texas Christian University graduates, take note, your mascot is on the state's list of threatened species. But here at the habitat, the little reptile can thrive. Tourists are welcome here as long as they follow the rules.
There's lots of opportunity, of course, for bird watching. We have a great variety and diversity of birds that reside out here and also migrate through. Also, we have a lot of interesting geological formations and some canyon areas that hikers should really enjoy. And just some nice natural areas that people can drive around and picnic in and just kind of observe nature and bring your camera and binoculars.
But come prepared. Water fountains and snack bars are designed only for the residents of the habitat. And restrooms, well, the facilities are the outdoors. The habitat was built to replace the wildlife homes lost when the city of Lubbock built the John Montfort Dam and Lake Allen Henry. It covers some 3,600 acres in southeast Garza County. So come and take a look, but be sure you bring what you need with you, because the locals will show you a good time, but they don't take American Express. With this South Plains profile in Garza County, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. No jet engines, not even a propeller. But for Littlefield's Werner Birkelbach, it's the only way to fly.
It's a great sensation. It's nothing like it. It's quiet, and it's about as close to flying like a bird as you possibly can get. It's something I think anyone would enjoy doing.
Werner became a glider pilot in World War II and has passed the flying bug along to his son and grandson. His wife, Dorothy, isn't a pilot, but she's as high on the sport as any of the flyers.
The hot air rises from the ground and goes up, and then that's the power that these planes ride on.
Mm-hmm. The Birkelbachs are two of the people who've kept the national soaring competition aloft in Littlefield for a decade.
Well, is this a dangerous sport? No, I wouldn't say so. Usually if there's an accident at all, it's usually pilot error. This looks like it's another one coming in for a relight. He didn't get off. He's going to come back in and take another tow.
378, good start.
Yeah, there's one there. There's one there, the airport is.
Once the planes get enough height and enough speed, then they have to go through the starting gate. This is the starting gate.
Mark.
Charlie Spratt comes from Charleston, South Carolina to direct the contest each year. Spotters help him mark the official time as each plane passes the start line. Meanwhile, Werner waits his turn for a tow into the blue. The tiny cockpit carries enough gear to let him soar for hours.
There's not a whole lot of room, but it is comfortable. We carry oxygen, so we can get above 12,000 feet.
Werner glided from El Paso to Canada on one 8-day trip, but the Birkelbachs say there's no better place on earth for hot, high winds than the flat, dry land around their hometown. With this South Plains profile in Littlefield, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Using those two fingers, it would be...
If you want to learn how to play bluegrass music, go to Levelland, Texas. That's what a Tennessee musician wrote to Hans Schneider, so the German chemist packed his bags and made the longest trip of his life to study with bluegrass virtuosos.
It's fantastic. I mean, this morning I thought I was hallucinating. 4 of the best banjo players in one line. It was amazing.
The students here are doctors, lawyers, secretaries, and factory workers. They share a consuming love for bluegrass and a desire to play it better.
This is the lick that makes it bluegrass. That's what everybody plays.
Instructor Joe Carr is one of the people who put this program together.
So you'd be playing rhythm and then go. So if you know that, you can play bluegrass.
How long would it take to teach an amateur that?
10 minutes and a lifetime to perfect.
I see.
Primarily, all these people are hobbyists, and that's, I think, where the strength of the music lies.
Well, can't you get in a band and make a lot of money like you and Alan do?
You can get in a band, and you can make some money and get back home and not have lost too much of it for your time.
The sound goes round and round and down under. Trev Warner of Adelaide, Australia, says bluegrass is the greatest music in the world.
A lot of other forms of music like rock and stuff like that, you need a whole lot of equipment and lights and sound effects. You don't need nothing with bluegrass. It's just pure, good, honest music.
And the two swell guys from Texas agree that bluegrass isn't just for listening, it's for anyone to learn and play. With this South Plains profile, in Levelland, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Talk to me.
All these picked acoustic instruments, and it just has, not in a derogatory way, it has this sort of brittle, crackly sound that I really like, and it was just spoke to me. That's my feeling about it.
So I shouldn't go into the man.
Not all that. Terribly, terribly important whether you put 2 down or 1 down. I think the important thing is that with 2 fingers down, you have a little firmer base to work from, and you just need, if you play with just 1 finger down, you
It's been the busiest time of my life.
Pecking out the letters on an ancient typewriter, Colquitt Warren writes a thank you note to a publisher. The stories he writes and sells come from the people he's known and from his own experiences, many of them on what was once the huge Matador Ranch in Dickens County. Like the one about the politician who showed up at the campfire site to do a little campaigning and got too close to the mules.
And the mule kicked him in the face and took him to the doctor. And the doctor looked at it. He said, if you hadn't had your mouth open, it would have killed you.
Colquitt Warren has had a busy life. He worked on the Matador Ranch during its heyday. He worked in the oil fields. He was county clerk in Childress County for a while, and he had a successful abstract office in Motley County, which his family still owns. He started his career as a writer when he was 71. You started a writing career when most people are retiring.
Did you tell stories and write before that?
I was always a storyteller.
Warren took the name Tom Bean for a pen name because people had trouble spelling and pronouncing Colquitt.
Where's your paper, Pappy? I'll get a piece of paper.
Why have you lived so long? What's the secret to long life?
I say it's luck. Now I'm not, when a fellow gets too old to sin, he goes to preaching, but not me.
Warren has had more than 200 of his stories published in books, newspapers, and magazines, and he has no plans to retire. With this South Plains profile from Dickens, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Into formation, and we're taking off. Over.
Don't call them weekend warriors, and don't accuse them of just playing Army. South Plains members of the Texas National Guard say their training is every bit as serious and dangerous as that of their full-time counterparts.
I don't think that we're appreciated enough, but that's my opinion. I think that the National Guard is looked down upon from the old days, because I was there in the old days. I think we have a new National Guard, and I think a new opinion ought to be formed. We train like we're infantry, we train like we're real Army. Of course, we don't do it every day, but when we do come out, we are serious about it, and we stay with it every minute we're here.
Staff Sergeant Dan Reed is a Lubbock firefighter who lives in Floydada.
Basically, what we've got is an attack on a position. You happen to be the enemy at the time. We attack.
Oh, we were the enemy?
You were the enemy.
Oh, I didn't understand that. I would have been more careful.
You didn't shoot back either.
Here at Fort Hood, Michael Hernandez of La Mesa rides the tracks, as these monster vehicles are called.
My part was to stay back with the tracks as a part of the support, and along with myself and another soldier, we had the anti-tank weapons here.
Back home in La Mesa, Hernandez guards inmates at the state prison. He's been in the National Guard for just a couple of years.
It's something I feel I got to do.
Why?
I guess I owe it to my country to defend it.
National Guard training takes a commitment from the soldier's family, too.
To answer the real question, I don't know how my wife puts up with this sometimes.
So after about 15 years in the Guard, why do you still do it?
I owe something to somebody, somewhere, and I believe that I need to pay it back some way.
With South Plains soldiers training at Fort Hood, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.
Sitting around ain't gonna get them clothes washed, woman. Bet you ain't even got my supper ready.
It's almost like a story about people I've known all my life.
Alton composer Haroldine Carson was inspired by West Texas beauty as he set Mardima Ogletree's words to music.
Wrote the opening music, I guess, in about 10 minutes.
This fictionalized history lesson is being performed on the site where wary Old West pioneers ended their travels.
See that hill over there with the trees? That was where the first settler settled, Mr. Burris.
Can't you find a smaller nail? No.
Cast and crew are learning that show business isn't as glamorous as you might think.
How much little Frankie's all?
Are they on? No?
Let me film me while I'm choking my assistant director to death, okay?
Back that way, Charlie.
Check your box. I want all the actors on the stage area now.
South Plains College theater director Jay Brown says there's some natural talent in this mostly novice troupe.
There's a couple of people who, if they had been born in the right time period, would have been wonderful in those old John Wayne movies.
Reckon I'll go finish up my fencing down by the sheds.
With a background in high school and college theater, Mark Gunter is the cast member with the most stage experience. He plays the villain.
I patterned him after the sorriest man I know.
Alton lumberyard manager Sam Thomas is a first-time actor and one of the central characters. What's your favorite line?
Oh, I guess my favorite line is that, well, Sam, I think you're going to like your new neighbors Even if my brother-in-law Fred is kind of a preacher man.
As they performed the Ballad of Crawfish Draw, the hometown actors seemed to revive the spirits of those who lived and died here more than a century ago. In Olden with this South Plains Profile, I'm Diane Dotson, News Channel 11. It was 1913. Construction workers and other laborers were pouring into Littlefield as the community began to grow beside the railroad. They unpacked their bags at B.F. Smith's Hotel. The original columns have been boarded up and closed over. That's one of the many exterior changes made to this old hotel. And in the front yard, only weeds grow now. Decades ago, a traveler arriving at this hotel was greeted by a front yard full of flowers. In later years, Smith's two daughters ran the place and raised their kids there. Former Cress High School principal Maxie McKnight says he learned a lot about people during those years.
Grew up with my brothers and my cousins and roomers, and I assumed it was normal. I didn't know anybody lived any other way until I got out in the world a little bit and realized that people had private homes that they lived in without all those people hanging around.
This is just another bedroom.
It was Maxie's mother who refurbished the hotel time after time.
This plumbing, everything she did herself.
Betty Smith is the family historian. She says Laredo McKnight could wield a hammer and saw as well as any man of the time. And she kept her hotel updated from floor to ceiling.
Look at that wallpaper.
Laredo didn't have any trouble with unruly customers.
She'd just pack them up and tell them to get out.
And she didn't put up with any trouble from her sons either.
She carried a belt around with her, some in her apron. For me, I guess I was probably the honorest one of the night.
Maxie says the people of Littlefield helped his mother raise him right. And that's why he'd like to see the old hotel preserved as a friendly reminder of what friends, family, love, and hard work can accomplish. With this South Plains Profile in Littlefield, Diane Dotson, News Channel 11.